All right, welcome back to the Zach Clark Show. I'm really excited to be here, Jay. Are you excited to be here?
I'm excited. I got a lot of questions, a lot of things we could talk about. Maybe things that people wouldn't expect.
Good. Well, we have Jack Ciapciak.
Yes.
Did I get that right?
You did.
With us here today. And Jack.
What's the worst pronunciation of that name you've ever heard?
I get a lot of Ciapciak. Yeah, I get a lot of weird things.
I just ask. Do you ask when you don't know how to say something? Do you ask or do you
I think
embarrass
you gotta
yourself?
ask.
Yeah, a lot of people ask, honestly. Yeah, which I appreciate.
That's good.
Yeah.
And Jack is a special human. He endured tragedy, which we're going to get into, but has used that tragedy to help others and heal others in a way of speaking about grief very openly and honestly, which I appreciate because all humans, whether we realize it or not, at some point in our lives are going to experience loss. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to get into all that. What were you guys talking about before I got in here?
Well, a lot. Jack and Sarah, our producer Sarah Prasmark, they met at NYU, and they both met through Greek life at NYU. And I was just saying that like Greek life at NYU is sort of an oxymoron. That's not what you think of when you go to a school in New York City. Jack, am I right or wrong?
No, you're totally right. But in defense of Greek life at NYU, it's a way to build community and make it more of a college experience because NYU is a place where you could live in an apartment and go to class and, that's it. So it gave me community there.
Here's the truth.
Yeah.
This is what I've learned 41 years into this life. All the people that I thought, what did they call you, Sarah? Losers?
Yeah. Not they. Him.
All the people that I would have dubbed losers in my 20s or in college
Right.
actually were the ones that had it figured out. Like there was this kid on my baseball team that didn't drink, didn't party, didn't smoke, and he was so good.
Yeah.
But he was kind of like, and he knew it. Mm-hmm. And he was also Mr. Team Captain, go to bed early. And I'm out there like partying. This asshole's like, but like he ended up being an All-American and I ended up in rehab. So what's that to say?
Right.
Right. And we were also talking about that Jack is a writer. He's written many years on Blue Bloods. What'd you do on Blue Bloods?
So I started there as an intern actually in college and worked my way up as a writer's assistant, script coordinator, and then I was a staff writer and worked my way up to a co-producer by the final season. I wrote 11 episodes.
Oh, wow.
And I loved it. I'm sad that it came to an end.
Were you ever on?
So you don't remember me from Blue Bloods, is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry.
Wow.
Which episode?
I don't know, man, but you don't remember.
It must have been before my time.
It was in 2014.
Okay. I started in 2016.
It was.
Jay's got...
I'm sorry I missed you.
I'm sorry, too. It was a terrible.
What was your movie?
The movie that I was in?
Yes.
Born Guilty?
Born Guilty.
Oh, I've done several movies, but Born Guilty was the one where I was the lead and really carried it. And the LA Times called me a poor man's Adam Sandler.
That's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, I have it on my wall. No, I don't. But it was amazing. But it was fun.
We need to dig into that more at a time when Jack's not here. Maybe it's just me and you because I want to. You took us through some of the bed scenes that I think are very fascinating. Like I've always been curious if. You're
sex on camera.
Yeah, like if you're attracted to the person that you're supposed to be acting with, and something arouses, is that legal, or like what do you do, or do you just communicate?
Well, I will say, and you can speak to this too, that things have dramatically changed.
Definitely.
The presence of intimacy coordinators. Like there are people now who are hired to help choreograph these scenes and make sure that both people feel very comfortable. I mean, in the old days, it was just like, let's fucking go. And depending on who the director was or where it was, like there's crazy stories that, but it's much different now.
Got it. All right, Jack, on to you. Yeah. More importantly, can you introduce yourself?
Yes.
Tell us who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I grew up in St. Louis, Missouri, came to college at NYU, and I've been in New York now 14 years. I met someone right after college. His name was also Jack. We were set up by mutual friends, and we were together for 7 years. We had gotten engaged. We were planning a wedding, and on December 22nd, 2022, he passed away suddenly. And it devastated me. It rocked my entire world fell apart. And so the last 2.5 years, I've been slowly rebuilding my life and trying to process my grief. And I turned to TikTok a few months ago in January, and
Of this year.
Of this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I hit a point in my grief where I felt like it had been 2 years. People were checking in less. And, when my mom would call and say, how are you doing? I knew if I told her I was having a bad day, it would ruin her day. And I started to feel like a burden to my friends and family. So for some reason, it felt easier to go on TikTok and talk to strangers about how I was feeling. So one day on a walk, I randomly posted a video, called it Daily Thought on Grief, and just shared how I was feeling that day. And I did that for a few weeks. I found some other widows and widowers and got up to like 500 followers and was just enjoying it. It was making me feel less alone. And it was nice to talk to people who had similar stories. And then one night I put up a post about Jack, my late fiance, and about the bench I dedicated to him in Hudson River Park, which is where we had gotten engaged. And I went to bed, and then I woke up the next morning and it had 1 million views, and it just continued to snowball from there. So it's been incredible, and I'm getting to share him with so many people and talk about him, and I've heard from so many people with similar stories, and it's just been really comforting and amazing. And I never anticipated it to have the reach that it's had, but it's been awesome.
Like you did the round, like how big did this video, what was the response? You were everywhere with it.
Yeah. So it got up to like 12 million views, and I got to go on the Drew Barrymore show.
Nice.
The bench that I dedicated to Jack, I included a quote from a movie that she was in, Never Been Kissed. The quote was, "Find out who you are and try not to be afraid of it." And Jack loved that movie. He loved Drew. And that's how he lived his life. He always talked about how once he came out of the closet and started living authentically, everything in his life fell into place. And so when I was first looking for quotes for the bench and reading all these grief quotes, they were all kind of sad and depressing. And thankfully I thought of that quote from that movie, and it just felt like the message Jack would want the world to see when they saw his name. So it got to Drew Barrymore, and I got to meet her, and that was incredible. And the response has just been amazing. And
So Midwest, St. Louis.
yes.
End up here in NYU. Are you out in college, or when do you?
Yeah. So I came out the end of freshman year.
Okay.
And I say that at NYU, it's not only accepted to be gay, but it's kind of expected.
Right. Okay.
But it took me, like a full year of college to come to terms with it myself. And I grew up in a, very Catholic conservative family. But still, I think I always knew that my parents' love was unconditional. Like I always knew that my family and my friends would be supportive, but I hadn't accepted it. And so it took, being in New York, to kind of get there myself. And
was it unconditional? I mean, they loved
it
you.
was. Yeah.
That's awesome.
When I came out to my parents, my mom said, I've been waiting for this moment for 18 years. I think my parents always knew. I did theater growing up. I liked to play with dolls. I was obsessed with the Spice Girls. The signs were there.
I was too. I'm not gay.
Spice Girls. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone.
Who was the Sporty Spice?
Sporty Spice, Baby Spice, Scary.
Beckham's. Who's
Ginger.
Posh? Posh.
Yeah.
So back in high school growing up,
Yeah.
was it like, were you dating women? Were you aware of that you were attracted to the opposite sex? Same sex? Like where were you at?
I had girlfriends in high school. And I think I always knew I was gay, but I was fighting it so hard. And I think for a period really convinced myself that I wasn't. And I had real relationships with women, I had real love for both of those girlfriends are still in my life today.
Of course they are.
Still good friends. But I think what I realized, in college that freshman year was, I didn't have the emotional connection with a woman that I had with a man. And I think I still have a lot of like internalized homophobia that I'm still dealing with, To this day, definitely.
What does that mean? Someone else that we've spoken to said similar thing. What does that really mean? I
think growing up, I so didn't want to be gay that I tried to reject everything that seemed gay to me, and tried to fight mannerisms and the way I spoke. I tried to change everything to be something I wasn't or what I wanted to be. And even now, even though I've, clearly accepted my sexuality, there's still a piece of me, I think, deep down that wishes I wasn't gay, as horrible as that is to say.
So honest.
And and I think Jack, who I lost, he really taught me to love myself. And it was the first time I felt proud to be gay and in love with a man. But I don't know. Yeah, I think
Was he your first love? Was he your first?
Definitely. I think I thought I was in love before, but I didn't. But I wasn't. And when you know, Jack and I, we only went on one date. we were set up by mutual friends. We got beers at Finnerty's in the East Village.
Classic.
We sat there for like 4 hours, and then that was a Thursday night. And on Saturday, he texted me like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And I was at a bar with my brother and some friends. And I said, "Oh, come by." And he came and spent the whole afternoon with us and night. And then we were just together after that.
For the next 7 years.
For the next 7 years, yeah. So
inseparable.
Told each other we loved each other 2 weeks later at the Jane Hotel. And looking back, it's as if we knew our time was going to be short. We didn't waste a moment. And I truly have no regrets in my relationship with Jack. We told each other we loved each other every day. I think it's because of how he lived his life. He didn't sweat the small stuff. He knew what mattered. And he just had an infectious energy and love for life. And, life was an adventure with him. And he really made the most of the time he had.
And he wasn't at NYU. He was just met him after college.
Yeah, a friend of mine from St. Louis went to Lehigh with him.
Oh, okay.
And she set us up after college in the city.
So a question I have is when did you start writing? And when you're writing, what kind of stories are you writing that maybe, inform or allow you to sort of express this sort of internal battle you're waging with yourself?
Right. So the first thing I wrote was in high school. I wrote a play, and it was very autobiographical, and it was about a guy who was in love with his best friend, his straight best friend. And
was that you?
Yeah, it was.
Does your straight best friend know?
I think he probably does. We're still friends.
Was this play put out or no?
No,
okay.
It was like I wrote it as like we had to do a senior thesis at my high school, right. So I wrote a play, and so the only person that read it at the time was like my drama teacher, one of the monks. I went to a Catholic high school, but he was a progressive monk. We're still friends. Great guy, But that, looking back, I'm like, what was I thinking? Like, I can't believe I was so brave to write that and share it with people. Yeah, wow. And I did have that friend. He did read it, and I don't know. Yeah, looking back. Anyways, sorry, I'm getting lost.
Finish it. Finish that thought.
Yeah, looking back, I can't believe I wrote that and let him read it. And I think I was struggling with things that I didn't even understand at the time. I didn't even realize what I was writing. But looking back, it was very much like that this guy was in love with someone he couldn't love. Anyway, so then in college, I studied dramatic writing, so playwriting, screenwriting, and TV writing, and got a job at Blue Bloods after school and spent 9 years there. And what was funny, after Jack passed, it was actually weird to be writing a cop show because every episode someone's dying. There was a lot of grief, and Blue Bloods is about a family of cops who have dealt with a lot of grief. The show begins with Tom Selleck losing his son. Donnie Wahlberg's character lost his wife halfway through the run. So I was able to channel my grief and work it into the episodes I was writing, which was really awesome.
How did the show handle that? Were the producers coming to be like, Jack, we got a grief story here, buddy. You want to take this one? I mean, how does that handle?
Right. So I got to pick the stories I wrote. So I would pitch the stories I wanted to our showrunner. So I was picking stories and coming up with stories that were relating to what I was going through. So I was able to work it in myself.
But how did you get that? How did you get that job? Are they like, do you have experience? Because I know like on Law and Order, you know, a lot of former cops, a lot of people who know that world.
Because I knew nothing about law enforcement or the law. But yeah, so I started there as an intern and just worked my way up. And I had a play that I used as a sample that my boss read and enjoyed. But we had a great team of technical advisors. We had a retired NYPD detective, Janu Saforo, who was on set every day, who read every outline script and gave extensive notes. And he was also there as a resource when I was brainstorming story ideas. I could call him and be like, okay, this is what I want to happen. And he'd be like, okay, that would never happen, but here's a way that it could work, So there was a great team of people supporting and making it real.
That's cool.
I love that. Are you ready to talk about? Yeah. So grief. Oh,
yeah.
We've had experts on. We've had people who experience grief. I think grief and trauma, I have gotten more airtime recently, which is good because I think people were shoving that stuff down for many, many years. And, they kind of say trauma is like something that should have happened to you that didn't, or something that happened to you that shouldn't have, right? And that's kind of the second example is you, right? Like, this should not have happened to you. I mean, you're living this fairy tale love story. You're with this guy, Jack number 2, for 7 years. You get engaged. You guys, I guess, go to sleep one night and you wake up. Can you take us through to the...
Yeah, I'll walk you through it. So we were in St. Louis for Christmas. It was the first time we were going to be celebrating Christmas together. We had gotten engaged a few months prior. So we were at my parents' house, and we'd been to an engagement party for a friend of mine. We came home. He wasn't feeling well. He kind of thought he maybe drank too much. It was, nothing really out of the norm. But we went to bed, and then an hour later, he woke me up. He said, Jack, I really don't feel well. And he went in the bathroom, and I went in after him to bring him water. And he was on the floor, coughing. And the next thing I knew, he kind of turned over, and I thought he fell asleep. It was so quick and so peaceful. But I tried to wake him, and he, wasn't waking up. And so then I realized something, was actually wrong. And so I ran downstairs. I got my dad. We called 911, and my dad did CPR until the paramedics got there. The paramedics were there in 5 minutes, thankfully. And they worked on him for, probably an hour, and just were never able to revive him. And looking back, I'm so grateful that I've learned now. At the time, we didn't know what happened, so that was the hardest part for that first month was, you go through so many scenarios in your head. I wasn't sure if he had choked or if he had taken something. I was I was texting all my friends, did someone give him something at the party and you're not telling me something? I went through every possible scenario, but what we ended up finding out was he had an enlarged heart and another heart condition that he didn't know about. So the way it was described to me was that, nothing could have been done, and it was something that was going to strike at any moment. So if it had to happen, I'm grateful that it happened when I was with my whole family, that we were in St. Louis. If we were alone in our apartment on our 5-floor walk up, it would have taken the paramedics, an hour to get there probably. So I'm grateful to know that everything that could have been done was done. And I had my whole family there to carry me through that night. And I'm just so grateful that I wasn't alone for it.
When you say he had an enlarged heart, is there some truth to that? I mean, based on the human that he was? Dude,
I mean, when we got the autopsy, and the term is cardiomegaly, and they said, oh, he had an enlarged heart. I'm like, of course. He had the biggest heart in the world, So there is something beautiful about that. Absolutely. Yeah.
And there's nothing that could have been done had this been caught or known prior.
Correct. That was the way that it was described to me.
And so this is December 20, Christmas, you guys celebrate Christmas. And so there's days afterwards. I mean, it's a nightmare, right? I mean,
horrible.
You can't.
Well, so, okay. Yeah, it was. But one nice thing about it, when my parents had to call his parents, thankfully his whole family was together because it was the holiday. So that was one, silver lining, I guess. But yeah, so yeah, the next day it was Christmas, and I remember my mom saying, let's try to have a normal morning. Let's open no one knows what to do. But so we opened presents, and we acted normal. And there was a stack of presents there for him that it took me probably a year to finally open. And that afternoon, I had some friends come over to my parents' house, and just sat with friends and cried. And it felt good to be with people. And that day, my friend Colin, one of my best friends, he asked me, what's something you do now that you didn't do before you met Jack? And without skipping a beat, I just said, love myself. Oh. And I'm so grateful that he asked me that question. And because in that moment, something came over me, this gratitude. It hit me how lucky I was to be loved by Jack, and how it had changed me. And, that was day 2 of my grief, and I was already coming to that realization. And so I'm so grateful to Colin for asking that question. Yeah. So.
No, I mean, there's something to be said, right? I mean, I just remember like when I went to rehab, they said that they're going to kind of like love me until I could love myself. Right.
Yeah.
And there's some truth to that. I think in this world, especially today, it's like, I gotta get some loving because otherwise I'm not going to actually like, I need that validation. I need to actually have someone else telling me that making me believe in myself. So I'm so happy that Colin did that. I'm curious, and this might seem a little bit out of left field, but I'm always fascinated by in the aftermath there, like what is your relationship to alcohol, drug? Like, are you reaching to numb yourself or are you sitting in it and feeling it? Or,
It's funny. I remember for like the first month, I thought, oh, I never want to drink again because we had been drinking that night and I didn't know what had happened. And then as time went on and I came back to New York and I'm, alone in my apartment, I wanted to go out, so I definitely did all the wrong things the first year. I was drinking too much. I was, I overdid it because I was depressed and I was lonely and I was seeking, company. It felt better to be sitting on a bar stool than alone on my couch, with feeling his absence. So I definitely overdid it the first year. And I've figured my way through it now. And I still have moments where I probably overdo it a little bit when I'm having a bad day. I'm not proud of that.
You're allowed to do that.
So it's complicated.
Of course. And that's that's natural. That's why I asked. Are you dating? Do you date?
Yes. So,
high standards for whoever you're dating. It's like,
I know. Dating's been really weird. So I waited a year. I didn't feel ready before that. And also so I waited a year and then I got on the apps. I downloaded Hinge and Raya and I went on a few app dates. And, I don't know why this hadn't dawned on me until I'm sitting there on the first date with someone. But every question he was asking, like, oh, what did you do during COVID? And, oh, why are you new to the app? I felt like I didn't want to bring up Jack on the first date. And so because I didn't bring it up, I just sat there and lied to this guy all night, Right. So then I got home and I'm like, I literally that was such a waste of time. Like that guy, I lied about everything by trying to avoid talking about Jack. So on the next date I went on, I thought, okay, if it comes up naturally, like I'm just going to go for it. And sure enough, the guy asked, oh, are you, when was your last relationship? So I said, this is kind of heavy, but I was engaged. My fiancé passed away. And the guy was really great, really sweet, like said all the right things. And like a minute later, he was like, hey, don't worry, I've been trauma dumped on before. And then I was like, oh God. So after that, I was like just discouraged from the whole dating thing. So I'm like, I don't know how to navigate this. And I don't think I was ready. I think I just wanted to like check the box and show myself I did it. I can go out on a date. And then I had a few setups, which were great because going in, I knew the person, knew my story. Yeah. And then I didn't date for a while. And then the past few months, I've been going on dates again through apps or setups. And at this point, it's nice because since I started sharing my story on the internet, when you Google me, it's like the first thing that comes up. So I feel like now when I go on dates with random people, they'll know, because I feel like everyone Googles.
The Google thing is weird.
Someone.
I mean, like when I was on TV at one point and I remember there was a period where I was dating and it was always just like, do they know? Do they not know? Are they playing dumb? And like, you just got to assume, everyone you're going to get Googled.
You're going to get Googled.
It's
so I like that. I'm like, I'm glad that it's just out there and I don't have to worry about it anymore.
Can you share, I mean, after it happened, what were you doing to take care of yourself? Like, when did you know you were ready? Were you in therapy? Like, what were you learning about this process that allowed you to feel like you could move forward in a healthy way?
Absolutely. I started therapy right away. I found a grief psychologist who was recommended by a friend. And I went to him, I started with him 2 weeks after Jack passed. Jack was in therapy off and on throughout our relationship. He really believed in it. And it's something I had never really done myself. But I just thought in the moment, I was like, I want to get through this and I want to use every resource possible. I don't want this to be the thing that ruins my life, So I jumped at the chance to, start therapy. And thankfully I clicked with the guy. And I still see him once a week. And he has totally helped me navigate this. And, I would say in sessions like, oh, well, at the year mark, then I'll be ready to date. And he was like, why? If you want to date now, you can date now. Like, you just have to do whatever feels right to you. And, stop making these markers for yourself. Because in my mind, I was like, when I hit 1 year, it's going to be easier, and none of that is true. And so he definitely helped me navigate that. And another just funny story about him. So I go in for my second session and he says, "Oh, before we begin, there's something I need to talk to you about." And I was like, "Oh God, like, did I do something wrong?" And he said, "I think I know your brother." And turns out he's neighbors with my brother. They live in the same building.
Oh, wow.
And he said, "I didn't know your brother's last name, but I ran into him on the elevator, and he was sharing how his brother's fiance passed over the holiday." And I thought,
wow.
God, that's so similar to this new patient of mine. And he said, and then it was bothering me later that night. So I looked up your brother's name in the directory and realized you're related. So he said, it's not an issue for me, but if it's an issue for you, I can recommend you to someone else. And I thought, no, this feels like a sign. Like this, you're the exact person I should be with. Out of all of the psychiatrists in New York, that I happened to go to the one who lives in my brother's building. Just felt special.
I mean, look, the truth here is that you are going to meet someone that loves you and the fact that you still love Jack.
Right.
Like, they're going to be able to accept all those pieces of you. I mean, like, jealousy really doesn't have a lot of room in relationships. We know that, right? And so there's going to be some trial and error, but you'll get there.
Thank you. Yeah, and I have hope that I will. I believe that I'll find the right person, and someone who can handle all of it.
Were you dreaming about Jack? Like what was your?
Yeah.
I'm just curious how internal.
Yeah, you know what? I've only had 2 dreams that I've remembered that he's been in. And the first one was about 6 months after he passed. And we were in the dream, we were sitting in our apartment, and I just looked at him and I realized, like, you shouldn't be here. And so I just grabbed him and hugged him and held him and cried. And it felt like hours. And then I woke up and it really felt like I had just been holding him again. And it was beautiful. So I wish he'd come to me in my dreams more, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, we were talking about actors before this being weird, and I know a bunch of actors who work with dream coaches.
Oh, wow.
When they're working on roles, and it's crazy because you really can entice your dream life.
Yeah.
To where you're remembering, you wake up. Like I have done some of that before, like, remembering dreams, because now I really don't remember any dreams.
Yeah.
Although I did have a weird dream the other night, but that's for another story. But I will tell you something crazy about dreams. This is a tangent.
Did you have fun?
In the dream?
Yeah.
Was
it sexual?
It was a little sexual. It was very strange. It was very strange. But let me tell you something about dreams. I used to watch horror movies when I was a kid, and they would scare the shit out of me, and I kept watching them. And I got on a Freddy Krueger kick. And it literally was preventing me from going to sleep because his movies were all about I come to you in your sleep. One night, I had a dream where I met Freddy Krueger in the basement, the furnace where he would burn all the kids. And we walked up to each other and we shook hands. And it was okay. And after that, I never had a nightmare. I swear to God. And I'm looking at Sarah here because I feel like she's like a safe person to be like, yeah, that happened to me too. Because shout out Sarah. But that was crazy. I think dreams are incredibly powerful. So that's just why I was curious. That's the dream tangent there, Jack.
So, Jack, in my world and in our world, Jay and I are both sober. There's these built-in communities that are probably more accessible than one would say, like a grief community.
Right.
And so I'm just so for me, I will say I got sober, and I knew if I knew anything after I got sober, which was like my thing, like your thing is Jack too, I was going to go help people. It was just going to be a part of my existence because I was so grateful. It was different in the fact that I was so grateful for having this kind of second lease on life. Have you? What is your kind of like relationship with grief? Are you going to go back and get training? Are you just trying to be a resource? Are there communities that you found? Like, give us a down.
Yeah, totally. I've found a community through TikTok, honestly.
Really?
And when I started posting, sharing how I was feeling each day, I was very clear about, I'm not an expert. I'm just one man who's grieving and who wants to talk about it. So when I give advice, I always say, this is what's worked for me. I don't know that it'll work for you because everyone grieves differently. but I think that there's just simple things that are universal that I like to share. I do want to go get training. I've been looking into some grief counseling programs and certifications. So now I feel like I have a responsibility to get trained, because I feel like people are turning to me as a resource, and I'm not equipped to answer a lot of the questions people are asking me. But so I found community through TikTok. Every day I'm getting messages from other widows or widowers or people who are grieving a child or a pet, who found, comfort in my story and who want to share theirs with me. So it's been really beautiful, and it's made me feel less alone. And I think at first when I started on TikTok, it was hard to, it didn't feel real, because it's just, I'm talking to people online. And then slowly I've run into people on the street who've recognized me and will come up and they either want to hug me because they know my story, or they need a hug from me because they're also grieving, and that's why they resonated with it. And so that's been really beautiful. And I had coffee last week with someone who I met through all of this, who went through a very similar loss. Her fiance passed right before their wedding, and sitting with someone who's been through the exact same thing and talking about it, it was so cathartic and amazing. And I want to find more of a community.
Do you know Amanda Klutz? Do you know her story?
Yes. And so I was mentioning, I listened to her episode on your podcast, but I actually got to meet Amanda last year. She guest starred on Blue Bloods in our final season. And when I heard that she was cast in an episode, it wasn't mine, but I was like, I am going to set that day and I'm going to meet Amanda and thank her, because she was someone that I turned to. I watched her story in real time through COVID, losing Nick, and I watched how she processed it and made something so beautiful out of it. So when I lost Jack, she was kind of a beacon of light to me. And so I went down to set the day that she was filming, and I waited until she was finished with all of her scenes, and then I kind of ambushed her in her dressing room, and I was like, I'm so sorry, but I just have to thank you. And I got choked up. I could barely get the words out, but she knew, and she just hugged me and sat with me and gave me some great advice, and she gave me her time, and I just got to say thank you. And it was really beautiful. So
yeah, she talks about doing those walks.
Widow walks.
Yeah, the widow walks, which is so powerful. And that's... Yeah. But that's the thing I think we miss a lot in life in general. No matter what the tragedy is there, you might sit here and say like, oh, I don't have the certifications, or I don't have the trainings, or I'm not qualified, but
right.
Truly you are. And you have the experience that no one can give you in school, which is you've lived it. You've gone through it. And that's how I feel. Because when I get into rooms and there's doctors, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor,
right?
But I'm invited to go into these rooms and be in these conversations and be a part of care teams, and I have to own my shit and say, I actually know what I'm doing here.
Right.
I've been through this. I know the feelings, thoughts, emotions associated with substance abuse and my family and all that. And so do you. Right. And so I encourage you to, yes, it's nice to have clinical training and it's nice to have clinicians involved, but you are a key piece of someone's healing,
Thank you.
And so
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Do you I want this to sound the right way. Do you feel with the TikTok, so much of my identity on social media is around substance abuse, and there's days where I just don't want to talk about it. Yeah. I'm just I'm over this shit.
Totally.
It's my whole identity. It's what I do for work. It's what people know about me. People call me on the street. It's what they're asking me about, and so I don't know. It's not necessarily imposter syndrome, but do you get fried? Do you find yourself addicted to it, or what is your relation? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. I am addicted to it. But no, when I started this, I was doing a daily thought on grief. And then finally, day 30, I hit a wall and I was like, I don't want to talk about grief today. And so that's what I posted. I put up my daily thought and I said, I don't want to talk about it today. I'm having a good day. I don't want to get bogged down by going down this hole. And so I feel like that kind of gave me permission moving forward from that day on, that if I want to post, if I have a thought one day, I'll post it. If I don't have anything to say that day, I don't post. Or if I have something happy or positive or joyful to share, I'm letting myself just post whatever I want, and because I did feel a pressure at the beginning that, I don't want to put up happy moments on my Instagram story when all these widows just followed me and are expecting me to, be in mourning. I don't know. It's weird. And I'm just trying to do what feels right every day and share all sides of it, because that's grieving. If you are lucky enough to have a moment of joy, you should grasp onto it and celebrate it. So, it's it's never
Well, even
going away.
after it happened, and you said you guys were trying to have a normal Christmas.
Yeah.
I mean, what is Christmas like for you now?
Yeah. At the time I thought, wow, this holiday is ruined forever. And in some ways I think it is, but there were so many blessings about it being Christmas Eve. It's a day I'll never have to work. Hopefully it's a day I'll always be surrounded by family and friends, loved ones. It's a day that no one in my life will ever forget. He didn't pass on a random Tuesday in March. It was Christmas Eve, so people will never forget that. And then the day that it happened, I was with all my family. His family was all together. So there were some blessings around it. And it's also like the hardest day of the year to be sad, Christmas, So, and it was his favorite day of the year was Christmas Eve. He used to say that, which is crazy. And I forgot that until I was going through his things, and one of his coworkers had written him a birthday card that said, "I hope tonight is like Christmas Eve." And that's what he used to say. Thursdays are better than Fridays because Christmas Eve is better than Christmas. So it's as if he knew that if he was going to have to leave us, he was going to do it on a day that it would be impossible to be sad.
I can get behind that. Thursdays being better than Fridays. I like the people I work with, so I don't mind coming in on Friday and then knowing the week is over. You mentioned a word that I think is important for people to hear, which is joy. What is bringing you joy today? What is
being here, getting to talk about Jack. I love talking about him. I love sharing him with new people.
And this emotion, like this thing that I'm feeling from you, right? Like I'm feeling it. You're probably feeling it. Is it like gusto? Is it like I love this guy so much and I'm so proud to be talking about him? Or is it a mixture of this is still the saddest thing ever, but I'm going to get through it?
It's shifted. I think just in the past couple months, the more I speak about him, the more it's settling into a nice place. And I feel like I'm falling in love with him more and more each day. Our relationship is different now, but it's still there. I'm always going to have a relationship with him. He's always going to be a part of me. He changed me in so many ways, and so much of him is within me. And I carry him with me every day, and that's never going away. And it's settling into a nice place. And I'm just, I'm proud of him. And I'm still madly in love with him.
And so being here, talking to us, talking about Jack, how about I saw your thought the other day where you said just get outside and take a walk. You try to do that daily.
Definitely. The walks are crucial. I love my morning walks. I swear to God, if I don't walk, it's like my whole day is thrown off. I need to start my day with that walk, just getting outside, collecting my thoughts. Sometimes I listen to music or a podcast. Other times I don't listen to anything and I just think. But it's like the time I give myself each day to check in with myself and, see where I am. And I think there's so many benefits to walking every day.
Is there anything or multiple things that you've realized about grief now that you either changed your mind about it from then?
Totally. Yeah. Well, the big thing is, people say, "Oh, time helps." It'll get easier.
Time heals all wounds.
Time heals all wounds. And
you don't know my wounds.
But I think originally when I heard that, I thought, oh yeah, when I hit 1 year, it's going to get easier. Or at the 2-year mark, it's going to be, things will be better. And what I have found is there is no timeline. It is not linear, and it's not going anywhere. You don't move on from grief. You move forward with it. It's something that I'm going to carry for the rest of my life. And what time does do is it gives you time to learn how to carry it. So yes, it's gotten easier to carry, but it hasn't gone away. It's still as big as it was. I've just grown around it. I remember a friend of mine said to me shortly after Jack passed, he had lost his mother a few years prior. And he said, "Oh, just wait till the 6-month mark. That's the worst." And I remember thinking, what the hell? I thought it was going to get better with time. And how could it get any worse than I'm feeling right now? And then sure enough, 6 months rolls around and the shock has started to wear off, and the reality of what happened is setting in. And that really was, I think, the lowest point for me.
And people stop reaching out.
People stop reaching out. And I will say, I'm very blessed. I have a great family, a great support system, Jack's friends, Jack's family. I had an incredible community kind of lifting me up, and I have friends that still check in with me. So I've been very blessed in that regard.
Is any of the...
It's all to do with Jack.
All of it.
This was going to be my wedding ring. It's my initials. This is a bracelet that says Jack 2 that was a gift. Same with this one. This is his birthstone. This was a bracelet he wore every day. He was wearing it when he passed. And this was the watch that I proposed to him with. And it's inscribed with our initials. So, and I got a dog tag with his handwriting on it. So I'm all blinged out in Jack jewelry.
Jacked out.
But it makes me feel closer to him, especially wearing his bracelet and the watch because he never took them off.
How has it changed your perspective on life and death?
Oh yeah. I was raised Catholic, but if I'm being honest, I kind of used to think that life ends and there's probably nothing after it. And it was really depressing and I just tried not to think about it. And that has changed completely for me. I fully believe that there is something after this. I believe that our spirits live on. They say energy never dies, and I have found that to be true. I feel like I see signs from Jack almost every day, and I've opened my heart to that, and it's been very comforting to me. I've spoken to a few mediums. That's crazy. I never believed in that stuff before, and but I went to one like 6 months after he died, who knew such specific things that no one else knew. I mean, it was so, and you can say, oh, that's all fake or whatever, but just let us have it. If it's bringing someone comfort, let them have it. But I loved it and it brought me a lot of comfort. And yeah, so it's changed my whole view on everything. So.
I believe in energy. I actually feel this weird, crazy feeling that you're going to meet someone as a result of this show. I don't know why. I'm just like feeling this because you're just raw and you're so open, you're so honest. So like if someone was to listen to this and they were single and on the market looking for a Jack, I don't know. What?
And you're open to that.
I'm open to it. Yeah. Slide into the DMs.
You're
please.
open to it.
I'm open to it. Just no Jacks.
No Jacks.
No Jacks.
And you're writing every day now and you're working. What are you doing now?
Yeah, I'm trying to write a memoir. So I'm working on a book proposal right now, and it's been cathartic, going back and kind of reliving our relationship and going through the milestones and reflecting on them. And the book that I'm putting together, it's part of it is our time together, and then part of it is the last 2 years, life with him and then building a life without him. And so that's been very cathartic, and I'm enjoying it, and we'll see where it goes.
I think that's going to help some people.
I hope so, and
are you working with a ghostwriter, or are you just you're a writer? So
I'm
you're
a writer,
doing,
so I'm trying to just do it myself.
Cool.
Back to the TikTok thing. It can be addicting, and it can be discouraging when one video gets 1 million views, and then your next one gets like 400 views. Like the algorithm makes no sense. And whenever I put effort into them, they don't do well. When I record a random thought on my couch, it pops off. But what I was going to say is, as long as one person sees that video and leaves a comment saying that it helped them, then it's all worth it. So I'm just trying to hold on to that and keep chugging along and posting and writing about it and talking about it. And,
Yeah, I think the best energy there is just your energy, like the same energy you've had this whole conversation, which is like whatever feels good to you.
Yeah. Someone said to me right after,
maybe is the word. It's not always going to feel good, but whatever feels right to you.
Right. Someone said to me right after he passed, all you can do is let yourself feel. If just feel your emotions and don't suppress anything. And I feel like I really held on to that and have tried to embody that every day now. If I'm sad, I let myself be sad. If I need to cry, I cry. If I'm happy, I let myself be happy.
If he was here, what would you say to him? Like if you got to say one last thing to him, what would that be?
Wow. I think I'd thank him. I took him for granted. Yes, I told him I loved him every day. We didn't really fight much. We'd bicker about stupid things, but I think he knew how much I loved him. But I didn't realize how lucky I was, and I hate that, we get this new perspective through tragedy, and it really, it's sad. So to anyone listening, I hope it doesn't take a tragedy for you to take stock of your life and take a moment to feel gratitude for what you have, because so I wish that I could thank him for everything he did for me and thank him for loving me. Some days I think, what did he see in me? Why was I so lucky? Why did he love me? And then I just remember, this amazing person chose to love me, and that kind of gets me through. if that makes sense.
That makes total sense.
Your story is so powerful, and
And a lot of hope. And I think, like, you know, even in recovery, I mean, the hope of seeing it in someone else, seeing them go through it, like that cracks open the door. And a lot of times we just think that, well, hope has to be just wrapped in this ball of positivity. And it's like, no, like the most powerful hope comes from the darkness.
Absolutely.
You know? And I hear a lot of hope, and I think what you said about finding someone like makes a lot of sense because you're open to it, and you're not just sitting and wallowing in self-pity, and you're trying to be helpful, and there's just a lot of, I don't know, like I feel a lot of joy from you.
Thank you.
Know?
I appreciate that.
had you experienced any loss prior to this? Like, had you lost a grandparent or like a?
I'd lost my grandparents. My sister lost twins at birth, 2 years. Or I guess three years before Jack passed. I can't even remember now, but that was, I think, the first tragic, tragedy that I lived through. And, when Jack passed, I just had a whole new appreciation for what my sister went through and her husband. And she's the strongest person I know. I don't know how you overcome something like that. And so she was a beacon of light, to me, and an inspiration through mine, because I saw how she moved forward with her life and, didn't let it destroy her marriage or, so that was my first real experience with grief. And then Jack, of course, was a whole nother level to me personally. But yeah, it's changed everything. I've got a whole new outlook on life. I'm so grateful to be alive, to be here right now. It's like there's joy all around, and life's too short to be negative or
And his family's fine with you talking about it, yeah?
Yeah, that was one thing. I didn't tell them that I was posting on TikTok, and I didn't really tell anyone in my life. And then that one video went viral, and then everyone found out. So my initial concern, I was like, oh God, are they gonna mind that I'm doing this? And thankfully they have loved it and embraced it. And it's
incredible.
Brought, they're so happy that people are getting to know Jack and are talking about him again. And his mom even, she called me and said, I'd love to do a video with you. I have so much I want to say. And, so they have fully embraced it, and I'm so grateful for that.
I'm not equipped for that one, dude.
Yeah.
My mom is like, that's my
Yeah.
moms. They get me.
I know.
Well, this has been good, man. Please let us know how we can support you. I mean,
Thank you.
this is like a really powerful topic. It's a powerful conversation. I'm grateful that you're here. I'm grateful that, like Jay said, you're kind of like plowing through some of the pain and coming out on the other side and providing others with hope. And like grief is, it's almost like this silent, I don't know, like people don't want to give it the respect that it deserves.
Right.
And it comes back to get you at times when you least expect it. So.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for giving me this
Jack.
platform and letting me talk about Jack. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about him loud and proud with you.
Jack too.
So Jack too.
Thank you.
Cheers.